Camera rolling and action.
Welcome back to the Welcome Podcast. Whenever we see coffee in front of us, we see.
Covered your mode. This was going to be my next question. I think you clearly mentioned.
And this is a little rapid fire round.
Sure.
And I'm going to sit up for this one. Beautiful. Mr. Gupta, how's it going?
How are you?
Good to see you.
See you too.
Cheers. Please come. Really excited about this. All right, guys. Welcome back to the Escape Velocity podcast. Today we have with us Mr. Shalabh Gupta. Shalabh is someone I've known for roughly about 7 years now. He's a good friend and somebody who's been absolutely killing it in the D2C space with the new company he's just launched called NUUK. Prior to this, Shalabh is, of course, from the creme of education in this country. He started off at IIT Delhi and went on to do an MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. Went on to work at the best consulting firm there is on this planet, which is McKinsey, which kind of shaped really how he has gone about building what he's been building ever since. Post that, Shalabh has been with Twitter. He's worked with GoNoise, and he's done some incredible work in leadership positions with them. And now he's in his new stint, in his new innings, which is at NUUK. And I'd love to know more about, and this entire conversation is more about what he's doing here at NUUK. Shalabh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Prati.
Cheers. So Shalabh, why don't you start with a quick background on what NUUK is all about? I think you guys are really redefining the world of appliances for modern consumers. Tell us more about that.
Thank you for saying that, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
I think we are. So Ghazal and I, with the two co-founders of NUUK, we wanted to do something that appealed to us and that had a market which we felt was ready to embrace what we were doing. What we found with home appliances, like to me, it was very clear that I was going to go back to the world of D2C for entrepreneurship after my first founding stint. And within D2C, we felt through a process of selection and elimination that home appliances is this massive market which for some bizarre reason is stuck in the 90s when the rest of India has moved to 2025. So, it's like this landscape where whatever we wear, whatever we consume in terms of content, the coffee we drink, etc., all of that has been upgraded, elevated, millennialized or gensified. But you still have sort of Marutis and ambassadors to choose from when you buy your car. So that's a little bit of where home appliances was. And we said therefore we have a right to exist, we have a right to play with a design first kind of approach to home appliances. So that's what we're doing with NUUK. NUUK stands for, it's a play on nooks and corners, which is where a lot of your appliances reside. And we want every nook and corner of your house to not only be a place where something functional sits, but also a place where something design forward sits that sparks joy for you.
Kind of blends into your decor.
Blends in, yeah. So it's part of your lifestyle, it's part of your decor, and it's not just a functional item.
For that elevated customer, I'm
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting because, in a way, our belief is that every customer wants to be an elevated customer. Nobody wants to be a non-elevated version of themselves. Everybody wants to improve. That's what India is. We have the awareness and the aspiration now to know what great things look and feel like. Sometimes we don't quite have the money to buy the most expensive sort of multinational brands. They also don't have the range that supplies every kind of product that we need in our house. So that's kind of where NUUK comes in. We said, we will create a brand that brings world-class design along with a very Indian sense of high performance, high longevity, great service and warranty, etc. And finally, at prices that New India can afford. They're a premium to mass brands, but they're not going to be so out of whack that essentially it's a great product, but it's out of reach. So what we've managed to do in the last year, it's only been a year, is solve that trilemma of great functionality, great design, and approachable price. And that's kind of been the foundation of the success so far of
Wow.
NUUK.
That's really wonderful, and I think one of the things that I've just realized, and you brought something to show us here today, is that you guys aren't just looking at home appliances. You're also thinking a little bit beyond that. Just good design being the sort of the core of this entire piece. And I've noticed a lot of brands recently are building around design, right? And design being kind of the main focus of their entire moat, right? Because in such a crowded D2C business, in such a crowded world of D2C, design can be a big moat if you were to do it well. And a portfolio company of mine, Areto, that I mentioned to you earlier today.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
Purely focused, and they have an entire huge team of designers that are sitting in there doing some phenomenal work on design, and they've built a brand that's doing exceptionally well as a result. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about this product that you've brought for us today?
Yeah, see, I agree. And the Areto example is a good one as well. I think design has to be married with functionality. And it's the case for Areto as well. I mean, I haven't personally experienced that product. It's kids' shoes, etc. But, you know, I feel like India is this uniquely challenging market where we are partly global citizens in terms of what we want our homes, our spaces, our products to look like. But at the same time, we're very much Indian. So we don't buy for hype. We don't buy because our favorite superstar is endorsing it or seems to like it, etc. And we don't buy it. We don't buy anything just because it makes us feel good. We buy it for functionality also. So even for Areto, I think because they've got those expandable shoes, etc. So it solves a very uniquely sort of that very Indian mindset of, hey, it's great ROI.
It is great ROI because usually you would see parents.
They outgrow shoes.
They would go to Sarojini Nagar to buy their kids shoes because
they want them to be cheaper because they're going to outgrow them.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So I think for us, therefore, it was very important. We were very clear we were building for India. And it was very important, therefore, to solve this. And we captured that in our tagline because we like everything else, we boiled the ocean on that and we thought long and hard about it. We finally came up with design first, function always. Because we said both of those need to always be on the same pedestal for us to be a success in India. It's easy if you're if you've sort of lived and worked outside, if you have a sense of aesthetics, etc., which a number of young founders do, right? It's relatively easy for them to create something which looks more polished or more elevated than whatever mass market options they are competing with. But if that thing isn't going to, if your Kia isn't going to give you a mileage or a service experience that is or safety experience that is comparable to your Maruti, you're going to go back to Maruti.
Value consciousness.
There's a value consciousness. There isn't a price consciousness which is as acute as it used to be. Traditionally, the Indian customer just had so little money that they had no option but to go for the cheapest couple of options to choose from. Now that customer has a little bit of money, but they continue to be very value conscious, and it's great. Power to them. It's a good way to think rather than the overconsumption way of many other countries. But that makes it a uniquely challenging experience for an entrepreneur because it means you have to hit bullseye. You can't miss. If you miss it, you will become a niche player in the industry. You have to hit bullseye.
Even though I could say I'm probably doing all right in terms of being a consumer, I am setting up my new house now in Bangalore, and I do see myself and my fiance and I have been looking at your page. And we're very excited to put some of this stuff because Bangalore really doesn't need air conditioning for most of the year, right?
I think you guys need personalized BFFs.
That piece. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that first? Let's delve right into it.
So this is actually my daughter's fan. We call this the BFF. We just launched it a few weeks ago. We launched it in 5 colorways. So it's like this. You kind of switch it on. It'll be a bit noisy for the camera. I think the camera will pick it up, but it's like a personal fan that you can use in warm spaces. If you're out and about, if you're watching an IPL match, if you're going to a Guns N' Roses gig in Bombay, if you use public transport frequently, and so on. And we conceptualize this as the always with you companion for a Gen Z customer. Somebody who's got an active lifestyle, but somebody who's also firmly in New India, where they care about how they are perceived, they care about how something that they're using looks and what it tells people about them. And whether it sparks joy for themselves or not.
It could also look like an accessory that you add to your outfit because it looks so cool.
So exactly, right? Accessory. Thank you for that. Maybe people, I'm all power to people who want to buy more than one of these and swap them around basis their outfit.
Correct.
Right? So
they're affordable as well. That's the best part.
It's very affordable. It's 2,100. It's our way of inviting people into the brand, inviting a younger audience to buy something from NUUK, and also a slightly more price-sensitive audience to buy something for NUUK, but definitely always a design-first audience. So there's that, and we've got this thing which is this like very cool semiconductor sort of technology where you do a long press and it's what we call the ice touch. So imagine Bombay, hot and humid, etc. You've got the fan, sure, but it's hot air, right? Because everything's hot. So this thing cools down to about 5 degrees Celsius. You just put it on the back of your hand, you put it on your forehead, and you feel this instant coolness. Yeah, it just gives you relief. It's just a little piece of joy.
So valuable in a time where heat, especially living in Bangalore for me, I've noticed the last
Apparently,
2-3
Bangalore
years.
is hotter than Delhi for several months of the year, which has been
crazy
revelation to me.
And people have suddenly gone ballistic buying appliances in Bangalore.
No one used to have air conditioners in Bangalore.
Used to have them.
Urban legend is not even fans, right?
I moved to Bangalore in the month of July.
Yeah.
So it was a good weather time.
Yeah.
By the time this year, Feb rolled around, I was like, wow, I need an AC in my house, man. It's impossible to live here otherwise.
Yeah.
And I didn't need one in the beginning. It was beautiful air.
Yeah.
And it was good weather, good air quality.
Yeah.
Everything was working perfectly. And then suddenly this heat's come in.
Yeah.
And it's been happening apparently for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Bangalore's had a lot of trouble. So, while this isn't solving the larger environmental problem, it's giving instant relief.
It's instant gratification.
And
for the instant gratification
with good
generation.
design.
Yeah, with good design. Always good design, because that is definitely the hallmark of the brand, and that is our reason for you to look at us.
Sure.
But the reason for you to consider us and eventually buy us, we realize cannot just be design. It has to be performance, functionality, features, and finally price as well.
How long would the battery of something like this last?
So we call this an all-day wireless range. We've got 2 other products in this. And the reason we do that is because this runs about 10 hours on a single charge.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. So
for such a small package, right? And the reason we do that, and that's why we take 6 to 8 months to develop any product, because we want to sort of marry all these things into one package. The reason we do that is because no matter how good this looks, you're going to hate it if it runs out in 2 hours.
Sure.
If you're a Gen Z, if you're studying in Delhi University and you take public transport, you can't have this dead fan sitting in your bag all day after you took public transport to get to college, right? Yeah. So we call this the all-day wireless because it means for a normal usage customer, it will run all day. If you put it on charge overnight or early in the morning, you take it out, it'll run all day. It's like our phones and our laptops, right?
Yeah.
I don't carry my charger to office anymore for the last few years because it just works. It just works all day.
People wear these bags around the sling bags,
the
around
fanny bags.
Fanny bags.
Yeah.
I've never got into that.
It's a very Southeast Asia kind of thing.
Yeah, but I see a lot of people wearing them now. Yeah. This can fit perfectly into one of those. And I think it's a great product. And you know what? Let's jump right into the first section of this podcast, right? And this is a great intro. Thank you so much for telling us about NUUK. I think all of you guys should experience this brand. If it's nothing else, just try consuming one of their products and see what you think, and do give them feedback, because I think that's what makes brands like these work. So let's jump right in. I think I'm going to start a little deep.
Sure.
It's going to be a little bit about...
let's get uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm getting familiar with you.
Sure.
This is something my friend often says. Don't get too familiar with me.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about early days, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of people watching this today who'd be, say, first-time entrepreneurs or would have dealt with a failure in a startup,
Sure.
or could be at a point where they seem like they're about to raise money but are struggling with certain aspects of their business. Let's talk about your personal struggles. Let's talk about early mindset. Right at the very beginning. Let's take the first question as it goes. So you've been in high pressure roles at the likes of GoNoise and Twitter. At GoNoise, I believe you were heading the business, and in Twitter you were in a strategy officer role.
Yeah.
And what personal value or mindset from those years do you still apply today at NUUK?
Yeah. I'll be honest, the high pressure role in my career was actually as a consultant with McKinsey. And Twitter and Noise had points where it was high pressure, but they weren't as consistently high pressure as the sort of as the high performance environment and a high performance, hyper competitive environment of McKinsey. And I know you have other friends from who are alums as well. So I think most of them will vouch for it. So I think for me, both these roles that you mentioned, Twitter and Noise, they both happened after my own startup.
Yeah. Tell us about any personal mindset that kept you going in high pressure situations.
Yeah. I think one of the things that kept me going through anything high pressure that came my way is to fall back on my history of having survived high pressure situations in the past. When you've pulled an all-nighter and then gone to a client meeting and survived, or when your partner or the client has kind of dismissed the work that you've put weeks into, but then you've gone back because there was no option. You've gone back and sort of redone that and come out and sort of earn praise from that client. Let's say, sort of half making this kind of situation up, and this kind of thing was fairly frequent. Something of this nature would keep happening. Then you just come out of those experiences saying, "Hey, I'm a lot more resilient than I thought I am. I have the ability to bounce back. I have seen worse. So, this is easy because I've been there, and this is very doable." So for me, there was consulting, and then there was 5 years of running my own startup, which was a roller coaster. And we met during the time that I was raising our first institutional round.
This is for Akiva.
This is for Akiva, yeah. So Akiva was sort of always a tough journey. It started as a tough journey, it remained a tough journey. Partly because I was just green. I was a first-time founder, like you said, many people who would be listening to this podcast might be as well. And that struggle and those varied experiences, those sort of 10 years of relatively high-pressure professional life, along with a lot of ups and downs, I think they made me very stoic. I just came out of that saying, I'm strong, I'm resilient, and failure doesn't faze me. I'm very clear about where I'm heading and what my, let's call it the P0 objective is. Like we use this phrasing a lot in our teams as well. What's your P0 priority?
Sure.
And if you have a P0 goal in your life, and that for me is entrepreneurial success, then everything else is it's just making the story interesting. It's like when I was at IIM, so I'm sorry, I'll just segue into this random thing, but when I was at IIM, Amir Khan came to talk to us. We were doing this very interesting course, which was sort of, I don't know how it was connected to management, but it was about movies. So Amir Khan was the highlight of that year, and he came to talk to us, and he said, and he gave us examples of how scripts work in Lagan and so on and so forth. And he said, basically, the way a movie works is there's an establishing period where all characters, and especially the protagonist, gets established. And then there is a point at which the objective of the protagonist has to get established. which is, and you put a lot of tension into that point, which if you've seen Lagan is
of
that
course.
thing where Major Blackwell or whatever his name is, and he says, teen guna Lagan, etc. And everybody's like, no, sit down, etc. And there's waiting, and then he finally said, Sarat Manzoor hai, right? So it's like it's locked, right?
Yeah.
The objective of Lagan, and we are all complicit in that. Like the entire audience, everybody is like, okay, what we want Bhuvan to do is to win the cricket match that will happen at the end, so that they don't have 3 years of this thing, and so that this arrogant British guy gets his comeuppance. And he said, after that, you have to engage for the next 2 hours, right? How will you do that? It can't be a simple story. After that, you have to place a lot of obstacles in the way of the protagonist. Everyone knows he's going to win, because that's what we're there for. It's not a sad ending, but you have to make it interesting. So I don't know at what point, but at some point, maybe because I watch a lot of movies, I'm a movie buff. So I started seeing every struggle in the light of, I'm the protagonist of my story.
Wow.
I know I'm going to win. And everything that's happening along the way is making my journey interesting, because otherwise the story is going to be boring. So that's the philosophy with which I've approached a lot of things.
It's amazing. I mean, looking at your life like a film, being the protagonist.
We're all heroes of our story.
It's a very interesting take to how you can build as a founder, And I think that's a great insight. It's a great way of looking at it. And for all the young founders out there, I think there's a lot to take away from what you just said. And, what you said kind of segues perfectly into my next question, because, of course, you've done this at Akiva before and you've exited.
Yeah.
But, you went into cushy roles. You went into like high-level cushy roles where you were in a comfortable position in your life at the likes of Twitter and Go Noise, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
And, what made you realize that I'm ready to leave operating at this level of scale, going all the way back to scratch all over again?
It's a great question. See, again, I think the two areas that I take a lot of analogies from are movies and cricket. So I'm going to take a cricket analogy this time. At Akiva, I felt like I was playing club cricket, and over 5 years, I felt like I became an exceptional club cricketer. I started understanding the game. I didn't understand it at first, and I made a lot of foundational mistakes. But I started really understanding the game. I did my 10,000 hours. I did my PhD in entrepreneurship there. But I was stuck in club cricket or in state-level cricket. And I wasn't getting picked for the international team. And then Akiva was an exit, but it wasn't a grand exit. It wasn't like this retirement money kind of exit or whatever. So I went back into roles. Like you said, Twitter was a wonderful role. I was leading strategy for India. Noise was even better because I was the chief growth officer at Noise. It was a little bit of a misnomer. What I was doing was a lot more strategy than really running the business. But it was a great role. It gave me a wonderful bird's eye view of this incredible bootstrapped, scaled up business. And I know you're familiar with that as well. Just wonderful founders and operators. And what I realized when I landed at Noise was that I'm ready for this level of sport. Yeah. I've been playing club cricket all this while. I think I'm ready for this. Here I am in my first international match. I'm seeing the ball clearly.
A World Cup khelna, sir.
So I'm seeing the ball clearly. I belong at this level. So it gave me that confidence that I belong at this level. I can play at this level. This level is no different from the level that I understand. It gave me that credibility as well, because one is belief and the other is being able to take your CV to somebody and say, hey, fund me because I'm ready for this. So it gave me that belief, that credibility as well. And I think somewhere at the back of my mind, there was always this thing that the whole, I'm going to waste the 5 years that I spent being an entrepreneur and being a semi-successful entrepreneur, not a very successful one, but I'm going to waste that if I don't do it again.
Sure.
I don't want to change my sport. My sport is D2C, yes, but my sport is also being an entrepreneur, which is quite different from being a CXO.
Sure.
Right? So I went to the Olympics. I did okay, but I did not medal. And now I'm back. I'm not ready to immediately start training again for the next one, but I can be ready for the next one. So at some
Ambition.
point,
I love it.
yeah. So at some point in that 4-year period between the two Olympic Games, I realized, hey, my motivation is back. My confidence is back. My understanding never went away. It's only become better with that with that ability to pause and reflect, and with that opportunity to reflect. And it's time to start preparing for the next one. And the next one is the one that I'm going to, the aim is to medal in this one. The aim is not to participate again. That's done.
Yeah. You know what? Just because I wanted to do this, I think my first experience with, and this is talking about noise for a minute.
Yeah.
My first experience with noise was with the associate at the company I was working at, with RPSG Ventures.
Yes.
I went into their office. We really wanted to fund them, I remember.
Yeah. This was the Sona Road office.
This is the Sona Road office.
Yeah.
And back in the time, this was 2019.
Correct.
And they were very clear, boss, bootstrap rehna hai, ye game khelna hai. So I remember meeting them, and full credit to them, because the quality of work Noise is producing and the kind of mafia it's beginning to create, and I'm beginning to see some incredible marketing people coming out there, incredible D2C brands.
And a couple of founders, actually.
They're building a mafia of their own, and Noise has done it so beautifully. And I think full credit to everything you've done in the past, of course, to get you till there. But I think that final inning just before NUUK, I think it probably shaped a lot of what you're thinking around the design thinking and so on and so forth. They recently launched this new product with Bose.
With Bose, it's a beautiful product.
I've seen it. It's insane. It's incredible. Yeah,
it went gangbusters, I hear. No, definitely. I think I took so many lessons away from that, because, it's like the teacher appears when the student is ready. I was ready with a lot of hypotheses. And what I did and saw and experienced at Noise, tested a lot of those hypotheses, refined them, and added a few new ones. One of the biggest things I took away was just the absolute sort of salience of product market fit. Especially in a consumer business, because you're fighting 1,000 battles a day. It's not like a B2B business where it's a long lead time, a long cycle, and you have to convince one person. Here we have to convince thousands of people every day, so you have to hit bullseye. And product market fit is how close you are to that bullseye. And what I saw at Noise was, here was this bootstrapped company up against some very well-funded companies.
Yeah.
Because they had product market fit and timing, they were able to go toe-to-toe with much better resourced
I remember my first purchase of a Noise product.
Yeah.
In full disclosure, it was an okayish product for a consumer like me, right? I use AirPods right now.
Yeah, of course, you're a far more privileged customer.
And I hate sometimes that I am able to, or I'm privileged at that point where
it is what it is.
AirPods.
Yeah.
But with that said, I think it's about elevating now, and they're also realize the elevation that you brought with NUUK. I think with this Bose piece that they've just come in, I think I'd love to try the Bose headphones.
No, it looks great. It's a way for a lot of customers to get Bose at a much more economical price point than if they were to get. So it's their moon swatch. It's their Swatch and Omega kind of thing. I don't know what Bose thinks of this collaboration. Naturally, it has their blessing. I'm not privy to that. But I think for Noise/Swatch, it's wonderful, right? It's bringing new customers. It's making the brand cool and elevated, and so on. So I think one thing that I took away was product market fit. Another thing that I took away was that it's absolutely possible to be very capital efficient when you're building a large consumer business. Because once again, it's about product market fit. It's not about how much money you burn.
Sure.
So I think, and in fact, I would say that the corollary to that was, not only is it possible, it's actually almost necessary to operate with profitability in mind, because it keeps the business honest.
Yeah.
It means you are pursuing product market fit rather than pursuing vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Because you can burn your way to a certain level of revenue.
We're coming to metrics in this
Yeah,
piece. That
yeah,
entire piece is
and
going to be very interesting.
the third was the role of design,
Yeah,
which I think
yeah.
for that
Yeah.
segment of the market, they always had a great sense of aesthetics and a sort of a pride in product packaging, etc., which over time built a stronger reputation, I would say, than a number of their competitors.
So, something I realized, and I know we're fully segueing again, and,
Sure.
and we're starting with personal struggle. We're talking deeply about consumer brands, but I was speaking to Manish Tandon yesterday and Mr. Rahul Maroli yesterday,
Yes.
and something that came out across QSR as well as AI healthcare was this idea of customer obsession.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of what you do in terms of building a product,
Yeah.
right, is really about obsessing about what that customer really wants,
Yeah.
right? And I'm beginning to realize, what I'm hearing very clearly now, is that this is kind of the only thing that if you focus so deeply on, your acquisition costs drop, you will have repeats, your lifetime values would increase, which is really all there is in terms of a metric to be able to define what makes a good consumer brand, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like I've come to believe that the secret to building a great business is simply to make great products, to care deeply about your customers and to make great products. It's really that simple. But it's incredibly hard to do because when you're building your business, you start going very inside out. You get lost in a lot of, my metrics and my sort of, what are my return rates like, so on and so forth. You start mistrusting the customer sometimes, or you get caught up in what your retailer, distributor, manufacturing partner, etc., are telling you. When really what you kind of need to do is to be very clear who the end customer is and never forget to talk to them. Listen to what they're saying and really listen. Not just survey them for the sake of it, but listen deeply to what they're saying, and all the answers are there.
And what is the process of listening to a customer in a D2C brand?
I think there's no shortcut, which is the great thing for founders that are willing to work hard, but which is the bad thing for founders who are not. It's having that very personal human-to-human conversation. My co-founder, for example, is right now as we speak in Chennai. She's going to be in Chennai for 3 days, then she's going to go to Bangalore. And she's doing that because she's going to customers' homes that have NUUK products and collecting real feedback in their natural habitat. And we think that is one of the best uses of the founder's time, even though it's 4 days away from all the meetings and reviews and business.
It's so important. I remember this time I was consulting for my father's business. He's a partner at a company called Effing Good Breweries. Not sure if you've been there ever.
No, but I know a little bit about it.
So they do craft beer, and I remember going up to the original founder of the business. My dad's a partner. He's the F&B guy over there, and I remember going up to him and telling him and asking him this question. I was like, "Do you know who your customer is? Can you draw a picture for me?"
Yeah.
And he drew a picture for me.
Sure.
And I said, "How about you give me 48 hours? I'll talk to 150 of them on the ground, and I'll draw a new picture and I'll give it back to you." I wish I could have brought a photo of it.
Yeah.
But the two pictures were polar opposites.
Yeah. Founders sometimes don't like... So what happens is you have an image of the customer in mind. Now, your real customer is a lot broader than that image, right? You want to sell to Seth and Karina, but your customer is many, many, many people. And the median of that or the average of that is different. So I'll tell you two things. I think the founder of Effing Good was not entirely wrong as well. I empathize. Because who you position to can be different from who you market to.
Sure.
Who you're marketing to is sometimes looking up to the person that you're positioning to.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the difference. For example, Apple. to take the extreme example, Apple has traditionally been positioned to cool people, artistic people, creative people, adventurous people, right? Shot on iPhone, artists, designers, illustrators, etc. Like designers will not join our company if we don't give them MacBooks. Um, so Apple has been positioned to those people.
Yeah.
But all manner of like regular lawyer, consultant, this, that, Excel warriors also want to use Apple products on MacBooks.
They aspire for it.
They aspire to it. It's a marker of some kind of a success. It's a marker that you're part of. You're part of in some companies, the chosen few who've gotten MacBooks, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's an aspirational product for that reason. Having said that, the second part of this is that as you get a bit successful in life, as you grow in age or stature or your company grows, it becomes harder and harder to come face to face with the reality of who your customer really is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say you start from humble beginnings, but now you're living in a multi-million-dollar apartment. All your friends are these like hotshots and CXOs and CEOs and so on and so forth. And you kind of want to market to them. You want to get their validation. Mm-hmm. But your customer is the same. Mm-hmm. Your customer is somebody who's a regular Joe on the street. And
who looks up to that customer.
Sure, who looks up to that customer. And you start forgetting that positioning and marketing are two different things. And you don't want to confront that reality that I'm selling to a much more ordinary person than I'm interacting with on a daily basis.
The entire lesson.
Yeah, and then so that starts making you less grounded. You start solving for a different customer. Because once again, there's positioning, marketing, there's product development. You have to develop the product for the bulk of your customer base. Mm-hmm. You have to position your product for the person who that customer base is going to look up to. Mm-hmm. So it's delicate. I think talking to customers regularly, really listening to them and being humble about their feedback can keep you grounded, can make your company super successful. Mm-hmm. But if you start relying on your instincts, or if you start sort of following this very what's comfortable to my mind kind of mindset about who my customer is, then it starts becoming difficult.
That's deep lessons in marketing, Shalabh. I think again, marketing 101 that's taught at business school doesn't teach you some of these things. These things you learn once you actually go down there and get your hands dirty. Yeah. So, again, segues perfectly, and we're segueing each of these perfectly into each of the next questions. And the final question of this segment is that if I would have spoken to you while you were at Akiva, or a 35-year-old you at Twitter, would that Shalabh believe he would be building appliances 4 years later, or in the case of Akiva, 10 years later?
Not appliances, because that was sort of one of the ideas that was floating around between Ghazal and me. But would that person believe that he would be building again? Yes, absolutely. Well, like I said, for me, it became like intellectually, it was very clear to me that I'm going to go back into the arena.
Where does that mindset come from? Like, I mean, once you've built a business, you've seen a semi-successful exit, like you said. Sure. I mean, to leave a cushy job and where you're being paid well and so on and so forth. To go back there, where does that mindset, where does that grit come from? Is it just that? Is it
I think it's stupidity to some extent. It's if you've been stupid once, you're just like, you want to be stupid again. Yeah. So it's irrational. I'll be honest. Like if anyone's listening to this who's trying to be a first-time founder, my honest advice is don't. Get a great job instead. It's a much more rational choice for your career. But if you're not easily discouraged, and if you're the kind of person who's got a little bit of recklessness and naivete and you are very, very ambitious, then entrepreneurship is the right path. I'm very ambitious. I I feel like I have it in me to be very successful. And a cushy job is the sensible way to become successful, but it's almost surely not the way to become very successful.
Do you think it also teaches you all the right ways and wrong ways of running a business? That's hit escape velocity?
The cushy jobs?
Yeah.
I think they are two different sports. One is to be a facilitator in essentially someone else's risk-taking journey. So you're working for a promoter or a founder, or you're working for, multinational companies often don't have one individual, but you're working in a system. So what you become very good at is navigating systems of increasing complexity, of leading people, of getting things done in a bureaucracy. So you're a bureaucrat, and I don't mean that in any bad way. I don't mean that pejoratively. But you learn the art of diplomacy, negotiation, bureaucracy.
Sure.
And at your best, you're like a very, very effective IAS officer who's really able to get things done and make transformative impact.
Sure.
Right? Some IAS officers are able to do wonderful things for their districts and states and so on. Entrepreneurship is very different. There, you're a bit like you're like the revolutionary leader. You're like the leader of this ragtag bunch of guerrillas, and so you have to learn the art of being much more decisive. So you're making faster decisions. You have to be far more emotionally resilient because there's nobody to blame it on. In a corporate, no matter how senior you are, there's always this thing that, yaar, maine to kaha tha. I had given my opinion, but nobody took it. What can I do? What can I do is something that you can fall back on. And it's incredibly comforting because you can go home on Friday evening and say, what can I do?
Yeah.
It's out of my hands, right? And you can live your weekend in peace. As a founder, you just cannot. And that it can take a toll on you, etc. So I think they're very different sports. Again, having said that, I believe because I'm a second-time founder now, I'm a lot older than I was when I started the first time around. I do believe there's a lot of merit to gaining industry familiarity. Mm-hmm. When you get into entrepreneurship with 10, 12, 15 years of experience under your belt, and especially if you've had deep experience in one industry, you're incredibly familiar with the landscape. Maybe it's a very regulated industry like fintech, so you know that piece. There's no shortcut to doing 10 or 15 years in payments if you want to do a payment startup. And then there are softer things which people disregard. For example, you know people in the industry. You have the network. You can recruit easily. You can convince people to join your cause. Capital will flow to you much more easily because people will trust you. So you have that credibility.
That comes with experience.
And what would take you an incredible amount of effort and charisma and convincing ability to do if you're young will just be far easier when you're a bit older. The only danger is that you may not do it. 9 out of 10 would-be founders will never become founders because that's also the stage of your life when you have more responsibilities. There's kids, there's mortgage, there's EMIs and so on. And frankly, like I said, it's irrational to do this anyway. If you're not insanely ambitious, it doesn't make sense. So it doesn't make sense for the vast majority of people. And great, because the world needs every kind of person. The world needs athletes and it needs coaches. It needs founders and it needs executives.
I think kind of building on that, where you can go home and say, what can I do versus I no longer have time.
Yeah.
For instance, just so everyone knows, getting Shalabh to do this podcast with me, we started at 7 a.m. in the morning because he is the busiest guy I probably know in my life right now. And I think that's what comes with being a founder. So if you think you're going to leave a cushy job and you're going to live this really glamorous life as a founder, I think it's very important to realize that I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's not a glamorous life. It is a very difficult one. And that's
Mukesh Ambani is answering emails at 1 a.m. in the night, right?
Yeah.
Who are we to sit back and enjoy our success, as limited as it is. I think it's not over till it's over. We have what we've done the second time around, like Ghazal and I. We have, in fact, almost manufactured some paranoia for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we think it's a useful mindset to have. We have some understanding of how the startup ecosystem works and how capitalism works. And the way capitalism works in our minds is it's a brutal winner takes all kind of place where, I always take the example of airlines. It's a bit of an extreme example. The most valuable airline in India has a market cap, I think, 130,000 crores, something of that nature, Indigo Air. The second best airline in India, independent airline in India, is SpiceJet. And it's kind of struggling and it's constantly on ventilator and the promoter's putting in more money. The third best private airline in India is dead, Go Air.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know if anyone here has seen this movie called Glengarry Glen Ross, a great movie.
Of course.
Great movie. It's got this like sales spiel, etc. It was supposed to be about the dangers of like sales, but it's become anyway. So
I love that you're referencing this.
So I love that quote, where he says, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado.
Yeah.
Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. So that's the mindset that we've taken.
My last sales boss
Yeah.
sent me this video
Yeah.
and told me, listen, if you're going to fuck around while you're selling,
Yeah.
here's a box of steak knives. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you fuck around some more,
yeah. You're out on your butt. Yeah, exactly. So, so we feel like that's kind of how capitalism works, where if you're a winner, capital flows to you, talent comes more easily to you. When you have capital and talent, you combine it with vision, you get great execution. When you get great execution, more capital, more talent, more execution. So it's a virtuous cycle. Everything in life is virtuous or vicious cycles. It's incredibly hard to escape vicious cycles and enter virtuous cycles. It's not that hard to lose out on virtuous cycles, but anyway, everything is a cycle. So we're like, we want to be in virtuous cycles always, which means it's relentless execution, it's humility, it's focus. This is how it goes. This is the life we've chosen. And for the foreseeable future, this is what it is, and just learn to enjoy it or don't get into it.
So guys, this is a masterclass in mindset that has been presented to you by Shalabh, and I think it's very important. Everyone understands this before they enter the world of entrepreneurship. It is pivotal to think about the mindset that you're bringing to the table, because if you don't come in with the best mindset, with the ability to take criticism, with the ability to solve for self-doubt, you will most likely crumble. I had a lot of questions to you, Shalabh, to sort of understand, what business reality really is in a business like this and in this entire game itself, the appliance game as a whole. So a quick first question to ask would be, what is a blind spot in the Indian appliance market that made you believe that NUUK could win against the legacy giants like the Hires of the world?
Yeah, I think the biggest blind spot we saw going in was a lack of evolution in the design language of appliances, where it just felt like the design sense for these brands had gotten frozen in the 90s or the early 2000s, and it hadn't kept pace with an India that had changed rapidly, that had evolved rapidly. Yeah. So the next generation after the post-liberalization generation had come of age as customers. And one thing, like I always say that the customer we have in mind is a customer who's watching movies on Netflix and, having a coffee at a Blue Tokai and sort of ordering products on Amazon and listening to music on Spotify and buying maybe T-shirts from your old investment, Soul Store, etc. Now, for that customer, we should be seamless with that stack. of experiences, right? They should not be jolted out of their their stack of these experiences, suddenly taken back to the 90s and say, okay, now when you're buying a vacuum cleaner, you have to choose from the brands that your parents had access to. You have to have the same shopping experience. You have to have the same design experience. You know, your mixer grinder, the blender that you're blending a protein smoothie in, it doesn't need flowers and leaves on it. Like maybe 90s India wanted. It can be modern and minimal, like the app that you like, your phone and your apps and your coffee shop and your clothes, etc. So we felt very strongly that legacy players had not kept pace with this, and that was a big gap that we felt was something which gave us a right to exist and play. But we were also very clear that those guys had built a reputation over time for a certain level of quality and performance, and there was a certain trust. So for us to have a right to win and not just to play, we needed to outdo them, surely on design, but also on performance.
Got it. Got it. And a quick question to sort of, again,
Yeah.
it's a little segue from
Sure.
the metric piece, but
Yeah.
building on what you-
Segue is the theme of our podcast.
It seems to literally be what's happening right now. We could keep doing this for the next 3 hours
Sure,
if we
yeah.
have time, man. I
Yeah.
would love to keep talking to
Sure.
you. But I think a question that
Yeah.
I had is that, do you think at some point, talking of legacy categories as well, like
Yeah.
the air conditionings
Sure.
of the world,
Yeah.
the televisions of the world,
Yes.
do you think you're at one point going to go toe to toe with them on even that?
It's possible, right? We're entrepreneurs. Those are adjacencies to where we are. So, for example, home entertainment or large appliances, they're both adjacencies. So, I'm not going to say never. But at the same time, we also value focus. Again, we're second-time founders. We exist in a very large category. This is large enough for us to build a very large company in, and the companies that we're going up against, the legacy companies, are like several orders of magnitude larger than we are today. So we are focused on creating market share and success in our category. What we don't want to do is, without winning your battle, you start moving to something else because you're attracted to the next shiny thing.
Sure.
So there's that, and again, we have respect for the different rhythms and nuances of every market. For example, large appliances, air conditioners, television labor parts, so air conditioners, refrigerators, washing machines, etc. They have a different set of competitors. They have the LGs, Samsungs, and Sonys. They are a bit different. They are multinational companies. They have relatively better designs. They have much larger focus on R&D, etc. So to outcompete them will require somewhat different things than to outcompete Indian legacy players that are also very successful, but in our category.
Sure. And in D2C appliances, this is a question I think many young founders would want an answer to, which is, which distribution channel do you decide to launch in first? Like, is it a D2C, your own site? Is it a marketplace, or like a hybrid of both?
Sure.
Where do you really start?
So,
and not appliances specifically. I'm talking D2C across the board.
It's not appliances specific. I think the answer to that is in what we did. So my answer is in what we did, which is we were hybrid from the start. We were also marketplace first.
Sure.
From the start. So one of the big lessons I picked up in my previous stint in the scaled up D2C company was that the best way to build a brand is to sell a lot of products, and for those products to be good, right? So you have NPS when those products are finally used. And the best way to sell, the most efficient way to sell a lot of products is to be where people are with an intent to purchase, which is marketplaces.
Sure.
So when you're scrolling on Instagram and you see an ad for any XYZ product, you're not in the mindset to purchase it. So it's relatively more expensive for us to get you into that mindset, to click on it and then consider it and then purchase it, etc. Which is why invariably the D2C channel is more expensive from a CAC, from a customer acquisition cost point of view,
sure.
than marketplaces are. I think a lot of young founders get swayed by this focus on what's the share of your website in your sales, and that's important to venture capitalists and so on and so forth. I think I don't think that's very important at all. I think what's important is, do you have product market fit? Does your customer love your product? Frankly, if you're 100% on marketplaces, but if your cost of acquiring customers still leaves money for you on the table, you're much better off than a 100% D2C company, which is overspending to acquire those customers. So I think just go where the customer is. Traditionally, companies have built massive businesses by being 0% D2C, right? Like if you're in retail, you don't know who your customer is.
I remember my time at RPSG, and I used to speak to so many founders who built 40 lakh, 1 crore a month businesses just on Amazon.
Yeah.
Purely on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, they've done nothing special. They've just created a Me Too product.
Fair.
And they've spent on marketing, and boom, they're doing a crore a month in business. Of course, margins are a little bit more, a little reduced, but possibilities to do exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's like putting your product in a mall versus building an exclusive outlet that you're drawing customers to. It's going to be more expensive to bring them to an exclusive outlet. There might be a good reason for it, but you essentially, like we've always told our investors also, that we don't have any target in mind for what our D2C share is. It is going to be a function of that product's fitment. For example, the BFF, right? Like I mentioned, the BFF, we offer personalization. So this is my daughter, so it says Nits Toddy Candy. And personalization is something that we can't offer on marketplaces. We have to bring customers to our website to offer it. And 60% of the orders that we get on our website for this product come with a personalization request.
Sure.
So it lends itself naturally. If you're doing a limited edition, if you're doing drops, etc., the website makes sense. But otherwise, why would you want your website to compete with a far more efficient channel like an Amazon or with a Blinkit? If somebody is offering 10-minute delivery for a product, why are you forcing them to buy from your website and get it in 3 days?
Sure.
There's no need.
Absolutely. Good insights. Again, very helpful for young founders, I think. And I think we covered your moat. This was going to be my next question. I think you clearly mentioned it's design and performance. Go toe-to-toe in performance with the legacy players and perhaps beat them on it, as well as design. So the next question, and I think you and I discussed this for a bit a while ago, was what is the first non-vanity metric that told you that NUUK was getting real traction?
The first metric was honestly just sales. Like we very quickly got to a sort of significant sales number. So we felt that we were hitting product, we were getting product market fitment in this. But I think soon after, what we started seeing is repeats, which were unexpected for this category. Because when you buy an appliance, you don't need to buy another appliance very soon. But what we found was, as we were launching more products, we're now 9 products in, more and more we were just finding more and more customers, anecdotally or from our website, who were buying every product that we launched.
What is the average cohort you would end up seeing? Time period of the cohort?
It depends on when we're launching. So if we're launching a product now and we're launching a different product 1 month later, that same customer is coming and buying that also.
Wow. So and what percentage of those customers would come back?
On our website, we were seeing, I think, probably something like about 30% of the customers that are buying in month 1 are buying at least one more product by month 12.
Wow. And it does take you like a 6 to 12 month cycle to launch a product as well, right?
It takes us about, I would say now, 6 to 8 months to launch a product from concept to launch.
You do at some point see that cohort reducing.
But there's constantly products at various stages of evolution, right? Like at various stages of pre-launch.
Sure.
So we launched about 8 products in the first 12 months. So on an average, we launched a product every 1.5 months. And we started seeing that people didn't need another table fan necessarily, but what they needed was a design first high performance product in X. So when we launched a cordless vacuum cleaner, they said, "Oh wow, great! We already trust this brand for this. I need this also." And there's this. And one thing that we've always done, Pratik, is we've said one use case, one product.
Wow.
We're not going to confuse the customer or ourselves by saying, "Hey, our cordless car vacuum does great. Now let's launch 4 of those." We'll launch different colors, obviously, but we're not going to do like slightly de-specced, over-specced versions and confuse the customer and sort of drive some kind of we don't want to drive market share through that. It's one product. It has to hit bullseye. It has to gain market share on that.
Wow. And just for reference for the guys watching, Shalabh is as interesting as they come. So our entire team as well is now sitting and listening to this conversation. It's quite amazing with some of the insights that are coming out of this. Jumping right into section 3 because I think we're gonna run through this one rather than taking breaks between segments. This one's about industry metrics, and this is about what really matters in D2C appliances. Right. So, in appliances, in your opinion, what's the early KPI that actually predicts scale? Is it repeat rate, as you mentioned?
Yeah.
Is it the return or replacement percentage, or is it the customer referrals, or do you think it's something else that I haven't touched on?
So, look, I think at the initial stage, scale is welcome at all times, and it does kind of keep you honest because it means that your product, marketing, all those things are working. But I think return is a very interesting one. It's a very important one. It's something that we care deeply about. We look at very carefully.
Sure. It's a very important metric. I do agree with that. It used to be a big point we'd look at RPSG. 2 things. It used to be LTV to CAC as well as customer returns.
Yeah.
The core 2 metrics in D2C were those for us.
So I'm gonna make a distinction between this. So one is like how often are customers repeating, which makes a lot of sense for BPC and a few other categories like that. It actually is not a very relevant metric for us, but we happen to be seeing very healthy repeats. But what I meant was how many products are getting returned to you as products that the customer opened but didn't like. What's the open box return percentage? Which could be for various reasons, cash on delivery customer just sort of saying, I don't need this anymore. Or it could be that they didn't like the product. They didn't like how it looked. They didn't like how it performed. And that is a very important metric because if that is very low, it means your quality is very high.
Sure.
And it means the satisfaction is very high.
Sure.
If quality is high and satisfaction is high, you are invariably going to get high NPS. And if you get high NPS, high word of mouth, you're halfway there. Everything else will then follow. After that, you just need to execute.
For a young founder to know, when they're starting out a D2C brand in the beginning to start seeing repeats, what is a good number for a repeat percentage? Say if you're building in FMCG, I go back to Akiva, right? And then we can talk about appliances.
Sure.
If you can give me just 2 numbers. For FMCG, what is a good percentage and what is a good percentage, say, for appliances in this particular type of high-end sort of appliances?
I think for appliances, if you have a wide enough portfolio, frankly, anything above 10-15% would be very good. For FMCG, you'd probably want 25-30%. But I'll tell you why repeats we don't think of as very important. And the reason is, and this is what I always tell first-time founders, etc., is just make money off the first purchase. Don't get into this LTV trap because that can lull you into believing that you will make money off the second or the third purchase when the customer comes back because he loves your product so much. What if he doesn't come back?
So you're saying you acquire a customer at price X?
Yes.
And your profitability on the first purchase should be higher than that customer acquisition cost, and you've somewhat won the game.
100%. See, I think when in doubt, just go back to the basics. Go back to how businesses have been run for hundreds of years.
Got it.
No businessman or shopkeeper worth his salt is going to sell a product below cost to a customer in the hope that they come back later and make them a profit afterwards, right? They're going to make money off every purchase. It's the it's kind of the only way to ensure you stay alive. If you stay alive long enough, you'll figure it out. But to believe the LTV versus CAC story, barring some exceptions, and I know there are very high repeat categories like makeup and things like that, and maybe it's relevant there. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with those. But in general, just like even if you're selling a lipstick, why would you not make $5 off of every lipstick that you sell? I don't think Estee Lauder was making a loss on the first purchase she was making to her customers.
Correct.
And neither should you. Your product should be good enough and your marketing should be effective enough for all of it to add up to some contribution margin.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. And this is kind of leading me to the next question, which is a metric that young founders often celebrate that you now ignore. And I think I know your answer to this question. I wanted to actually give you a tiny story about this before I went into it. I recently spoke to a young lad from Bits Pilani, and he called me up, and he apparently lives in Araya as well. He comes to the gym. Never spoken to him in the past, but he mentioned that भैया fundraise करना है, भैया product बना नहीं है, पर fundraise करना है. VC के पास जाओ, कहाँ जाओ? Fundraise करना है, जल्दी से करना है. भैया कैसे fundraise? How to fundraise? And I feel like young founders celebrate the word fundraising because I think in this world of Shark Tank, we're seeing all these cool.
It's glamorous.
It's looking glamorous, right?
Yes.
It's looking fancy.
Yes.
To raise funds, and I think in your sort of case, where you've now just about raised a $5 million round from Vertex, I think and I'm assuming. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you gave two shits about raising the funds. To be honest, what you cared more about was being a good business.
Yeah.
And the funds came themselves. Is that, would I say that's right?
No, I think, largely so. Look, we're very respectful of venture capitalists and the fundraise process. We understand that they are trying to get smart about our business in a short time. And we need to put our best foot forward for them to do that. We need the capital. We're not a profitable company already. We are a healthy contribution margin company. But we do have some fixed costs that we need external capital for. So we worked very hard. Like we prepared our materials, our deck, etc., our story, and so on, our vision. So we worked very hard on all of that, and the result was a fairly quick, high conviction kind of investment process. But yes, we've now raised 2 institutional rounds. We have not, even in our hearts, it's not just to pretend. We have not broken our stride. We've not celebrated it in any way. We've not even cut a cake to celebrate the 2 fundraisers that we've done. And I feel sometimes that the team must think we are ascetics because it's not like we don't party, but we just never party for this. And we told the team, and there's this message that Ghazal and I sent to the team, and we said we will not celebrate fundraise. We will celebrate a revenue milestone. We will celebrate a profitability milestone.
Sure.
We will celebrate birthdays. We will celebrate a lot of things, but we will not celebrate fundraisers because fundraising to some extent is it's a responsibility and a burden. And of course, it's validation also, but the real validation is that the customer is buying your product. The customer is buying your product. So the validation from this...
Which is what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I always give this example. If you were to secure a large loan from HDFC Bank, are you going to celebrate? Are you going to party? I don't think so. I think it's a loan. The difference between taking a loan from HDFC and taking venture from a VC is that VC is more expensive, by the way.
Definitely. Yeah.
But somehow it's more glamorous.
Yeah.
It's become so glamorous because media talks about it, and Shark Tank, and these founders sort of celebrate it, and it becomes one way to measure yourself against your peers. How much have you raised? Oh, I've raised this much, etc.
I think it's literally every time I talk to a founder, it's like I have commitments of so much,
sure,
or I have this much raised, and I'm like, "Bhai, bech kya raha hai? What are you really doing?" Is the question. Tell me more about that. That's my honest.
But it's hard. But it's hard because for first-time founders, I know that they want to see themselves in that Your Story article. Yeah. They want to see themselves in those lists of who's raised how much money. They want to tell their friends, I'm good. And you know how I'm good? Because such and such put this much money, and this brand name investor put this much money in me, and I'm now talking to this guy and I'm talking to that guy, etc. And I think to some extent we've done that, so we're past that, and we're very clear that like just build a great business, build value, everything else will follow. I think it's function of also being a bit older, not needing external validation as much.
No, but what you're saying is so important because you're giving insights to young guys about thinking the way you do at this age because it would be valuable to them.
Yeah,
now.
and I'll tell you another thing. I think the correlation between companies and founders that are well known and companies and founders that have raised a lot of money is very high, right? But the correlation between companies and founders that are successful and companies and founders that have raised a lot of money is not at all high. And a lot of the most successful startups in India today are the ones that fail to raise money for whatever reason. Maybe the founders were not great storytellers and so on and so forth. And they were then forced to survive. They were forced to do the right thing. They were forced to build product market fit instead of building story market fit.
Sure.
And that led them to brand success.
I think Go Zero is a great example of that.
I mean, Noise is a great example of that. Look at AstroTalk.
Oh my God.
AstroTalk, phenomenal business. I mean, they're just creating so much value, and
even
they were scoffed at. They were scoffed at by VC and so on for the longest time, right? And therefore they were forced to hunker down and do only what was right.
They didn't even have a C-suite till like now. They're now hiring a C-suite.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely wild, amazing.
Imagine them having received $100 million somewhere down the line. I don't think it would be the company it is.
Okay, guys, so we had a bit of a camera heating problem and we had to stop the podcast midway. But hey, guess what? We figured out a new use case for NUUK's product. And I think we just use that.
Everyone needs a BFF.
Everyone needs a BFF. It can be used
even the
by
camera.
A cameraman.
Even the camera.
Even the camera needs a BFF. So, I mean, unfortunately, because we're in a slightly warm room, it is getting warm, and that device, BFF, really helped ensure that we were able to get back a lot quicker than we initially planned. So we were talking about the fact that fundraising can very often lead to responsibility and a lot of forced decisions to achieve specific milestones that are then set by investors as part of their term sheets and so on and so forth. So, segueing from there, I kind of wanted to ask you a question which may throw you off a little bit, right? If I were to completely make you invisible to all the metrics or oblivious to all the metrics that are available at NUUK today and give you one metric on one dashboard, and what number would you look at every single day to predict how your business is doing? Could be a simple one, could be a more intricate one, but what do you think is really important at this stage of your business?
I think I would say the average cost of sales, which is another way of saying CAC.
Sure.
But average cost of sales includes organic as well. So what's the total marketing spend divided by the total sales that you're doing to drive those sales? Because I feel like that's a very honest way to evaluate whether a lot of things are coming together. Is your product good? Is your communication sharp? Is your marketing effective? Are customers? What's like? Are you negotiating well with your with your marketplaces on commissions and things like that? Like everything comes. A lot of things come together.
So if it's one metric on the dashboard, you're saying it'll be CAC?
Yes.
Yeah, very interesting. So we're gonna go from there, and again, founders looking at CAC. Even I believe this is something during my time as an analyst at the fund. We would strongly look at customer acquisition cost as a big decider. It was part of our thesis. It would literally be written in our thesis that the CAC needed to be a certain number for us to be able to invest. And it's great to hear from someone like Shalabh as well that that's what he's looking at this stage. So moving on to the final segment before a little game that I'm going to play with you. This is about the escape velocity moments. This is really what this podcast is all about, right? And when did you first... What was the first real signal that NUUK had product market fit? And it's not just a hype, but had sticky momentum.
I think quantitatively, the first signal was when people started buying the second and the third product that we launched, which meant that word of mouth from one good product was carrying over to adoption of the second product and the third.
When was that? If you can give me a timeline around when you first experienced that happening?
Quite soon after we launched our, so we started with cooling products. We launched 3 cooling products in the last summer, and then I think around July. So we started in March. So around July, which is about 3 to 4 months after we started, we launched our first vacuum cleaner product, like a cordless vacuum cleaner, and that received customer love very quickly.
But question again, vacuum cleaners. In a country like ours, where we usually have,
jhadu pocha, yeah.
So, ये vacuum cleaner.
So this is a cordless car vacuum cleaner, and car. So we said cars are a space that a lot of people are very proud of. They like to keep their cars clean. You know that whole sort of meme around, sort of boys keep their rooms messy and their cars clean, and girls keep their rooms clean and their cars messy, etc. But anyway, so we said, look, keeping your car clean is something that motorheads take pride in and they love.
Sure.
And for that, so we designed something purpose built for that. So it's cordless, so you don't have to kind of plug it in and run the ignition. It's heavy duty. It runs for a long enough time for even the largest of cars, or if you have one of those pickups, etc., to be cleaned, and it's designed in that way. Like, it's got this rubberized finish. It's very tactile and military-ish, etc. Sure. I've been pushing for something in camo for a while. So that's what we did. But what we found is that when you build a product which is really good on function, then it lends itself to other use cases that you hadn't envisaged. So we get a lot of customers who are like, I don't really care about the car. I use this to clean my drawers. Because you can have somebody who's dusting your home. But what about the drawers? No, that's something that's maybe a little more private, etc. So you take stuff out and you're able to kind of clean it easily. And you don't want to bring out your full-fledged, heavy-duty, corded, or like a big-ass vacuum cleaner to do something very small. You see a little cobweb, or you see something in your drawer, or you've spilled something, you spilled some cookie or something on the floor. You don't need to bring the whole thing out. So this is like a very good spot vacuum cleaning kind of product.
I think this is really me gonna correct myself now that I have called you guys a home appliance business. I feel like you guys are just an design first appliance business that can be applied and used across various use cases. And we're seeing it with the camera today as an example.
Yes, that's
so.
True.
I mean, it's quite incredible.
I mean, this isn't a home appliance either. It's an appliance.
It's a portable appliance piece. And I mean, home appliances, I think, is where you probably got started.
Sure.
And I'm guessing as you began to evolve, it became more about good design. Performance, high functioning equipment that you can use that looks cool and is not big.
Frankly, it's anything electrical in your life that uses mechanical products. Mechanical sort of. I mean, if it uses a motor, if it uses a battery, etc., it is an appliance.
Sure.
And it belongs to our portfolio.
Got it. And, in your space, and this is the final question in the escape velocity piece, is escape velocity about supply chain speed? Is it about product obsession? Or is it about customer trust? And I'd request you to pick any one when you're thinking
product obsession.
Product obsession?
Yeah, it's product obsession over everything else. It has to be smart in the sense that you can be obsessed about a product and build an overspec'd product which is too expensive for the market, for example. But those common sense things, assuming they're in place, it's about product obsession. That's your moat.
So would you say as a business, you guys are product oriented as opposed to customer oriented, or are you guys a combination of both?
We're a combination of both. See, it's like I said, so product market fit means you are building customer backward. You are building a product with a customer in mind. What we aren't is engineers who build something because they get excited about it. So they build everything that can be built. If technology allows, I will put it into the product. And then they follow a mindset of if you build it, they will come.
Sure.
But that doesn't happen because you did not take care to insight.
Sure.
You did not do consumer insights. You did not do your research. You did not listen to the customer.
Yeah.
You just assume they will share your excitement.
Correct.
That's not who we are. We are product thinkers.
Very nice.
So it's a lot more, it's a lot more Apple than Samsung in a way.
Got it.
Samsung's like, I've built the best phone. It's got the better camera. It's got the better water resistance, etc., etc. Why do people still want to buy the Apple?
Design and functionality.
Yeah, because they build with the customer in mind. They're like, people want a phone that just works, that doesn't heat, that looks great.
In all fairness, my iPhone heats, man. Like it does.
My iPhone doesn't.
I think I have,
you use it
I have,
more.
I have an old iPhone. That I bought
or maybe you play a lot of music or whatever. But but in general, my point is that we always keep the customer in our minds when we design the product, and we are respectful that it's not about how much you've put into the product. It's about what the customer will get out of it.
Wow, very nice. And to wrap that section up, we have a new section, which is a game segment. And this is a little rapid fire round.
Sure.
And a question where I'm going to ask you to let one thing go. Okay?
Okay.
So in the rapid fire, it's going to be 1 minute, the whole thing. Okay?
Perfect.
And I'm going to ask you this or that, followed by a one-line or a one-word reason as to why.
Okay.
All right? So let's go. I'm going to sit up with this one. Beautiful design or beautiful performance?
Performance.
Why?
Because design gets you in. It's like a beautiful person that you fall in love with. But to spend the rest of your life with that person needs to be beautiful on the inside. So it's the same for appliances. They're going to be with you for years. You will forget that it looks good if it doesn't perform well.
Got it. Amazon first launch or own site first launch?
Amazon first.
Amazing. Why?
Because
Footfall?
Yeah, because scale builds brand more than channel builds brand.
Got it. Outsource manufacturing or build in-house?
Outsource manufacturing. If it's good enough for Apple, it's good enough for you.
Would that depend on stage?
No, if it's good enough for Apple, it's not about stage. It's the largest company there is. So it's a pure economics decision. You don't have to become a manufacturing.
Getting into the manufacturing game in itself is an entirely different headache.
It's a different muscle. If you have that, absolutely go for it. It can be beneficial to margins, but it comes with different risks and different capabilities.
All right. Single hero product or wide portfolio?
Wide portfolio.
Wonderful. Why?
You've been a venture capitalist. Did you invest in one company?
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Very, very good answer. Indian domination or early global bets?
Indian domination.
Amazing. And if I were to ask you to let one of these go,
Yeah.
these are brutal choices, yeah?
Sure.
High scale, brand love, or operational profit? Which one would you let go?
High scale. It's an easy one, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's an easy one? Is that okay? I
Yeah.
love it. You have to kill one of them. So you're saying you don't want higher scale, you want brand love and operational profit 100%. Those two will make it work.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree with that as well. I think that's a brilliant answer to it. And for a wild card closing question, one more, last one. What's one belief you hold about the appliance space that most people would think is totally wrong?
One belief that we hold dear is that it takes an incredible amount of effort to build great products.
Wow.
And unfortunately, we feel like in the D2C space or in the startup space, it's become very common for people, including founders, to think that product to koi bhi bana lega. It's about marketing, it's about distribution. We don't think that's the case at all. Product koi bhi nahi bana lega. Koi bhi cannot make, and I'll again give you a very simple example. OTT platforms, right? Netflix is still the best. It's so much more pleasurable to browse on it. It just auto plays. The little cues, etc., that they do. That product is so much superior to a Sony Live product. Everything is there. The Sony Live guys can look at that product and copy it, or the Amazon Prime guys. They're a global brand. They can, but it's not as good as that. So, and a better product. I don't think it's that easy to make. It requires a level of obsession, a level of sort of no detail is small enough. That kind of thinking that creates customer love that cannot easily be replicated through mere distribution or marketing.
Sure. So Shalabh, I'm going to leave you with the stage for maybe just about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Where if there's anything you want to say about NUUK, about the industry, about something that you feel very close to your heart that you want to share with the audience watching, what would that be? You can take your time to think about it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. That's the only curveball actually in this podcast, because I feel like I've already poured myself out.
Yeah.
I would just say, especially to young founders, don't be impatient and don't treat entrepreneurship as a get-rich-quick scheme, because it's not. You have to think about it as an arduous path which will take you nearly as long to get to success as the conventional path will. So do it for reasons that are different from wanting to get there faster. Do it because you're incredibly passionate about a problem, or do it because you're insanely ambitious and a normal level of success will not satisfy you, or do it because you have a voice. There is something that you think that you are uniquely positioned to contribute to the world, and if you didn't do it your way, you would not be able to find another way to do it. So have a motivation that is greater than, I want to get to this point by this time in my life. What if you don't get there? And most likely you won't. Like, just statistically speaking, most people will not get there as fast as they imagine. Everything will take twice as long and twice as much money as you think. So just do it for the right reasons. Absolutely do it, but do it for the right reasons.
Well, Shalabh, this has been an incredible conversation. I wish we could keep talking for another couple of hours.
So do I.
I guess we both have places to be. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for doing this on such short notice.
Thank you.
Shalabh incidentally said yes to this just last night, and we've met at 8 a.m. this morning to do this. Yeah. But that's what founders are all about. Yeah. And that's what this podcast is all about. So thank you so much, Shalabh, for coming.
Thank you, Pratik, for having me. It's been fantastic. I loved it.
Amazing. And this is the Escape Velocity podcast, guys. And stay tuned for the next one. We usually take breaks between segments, and this is because I underestimated what it takes to build a podcast, and hence booked a party room like an idiot.